All right, hi. Thank you so much for being on the webinar with us today. I enjoyed your class when I was there a
Oh,
couple
good.
weeks ago. You're so sweet. So, can you just introduce yourself for our listeners?
Sure. My name is Sophie East, and I teach kindergarten at Legacy Academy in Fayetteville, Georgia.
Great. So, you did the lesson I Am Special, which is on our website, and that is for grades K through 5. Will you just tell our listeners about the activity you did with your students?
Sure. So I started out the lesson by telling the students that we're going to have a guessing game, and they only had 2 hints. And so they were going to guess what subject we were going to be discussing by first listening to 2 stories that we were going to read. So we read the first story called Fish is Fish by Leo Leone, and it's about 2 friends, a fish and a tadpole, and they start off kind of both thinking they're fish and they're the same. But then one, as they grow up, one becomes a frog, and the frog kind of leaves and goes on land. And so anyway, the whole book kind of talks about just learning to be excited and just loving who you are for how you are. So after that book, I gave them the first hint. I went around the room and said the title of the book, Fish is Fish. And then to each student, Ashley is Ashley, Jacob is Jacob. And by that hint, just tried to see if they could guess what the theme of the book was. And right away, a couple of them guessed, oh, this is about being yourself or being free to be who you are. So that was the first book. And then we read the second book called Chameleon's Colors, and it's about a chameleon he gets tired of blending in all the time because nobody can see him. It had a really similar theme as Fish is Fish, just kind of about being free to be who you are. And so then after we read that story, I asked the kids again, what do you think the message of this book is? They picked up on the message that it was similar, just that just being who you are and that who you are is special. So
They were so excited to guess. It was so cute.
yes, they love anything, with a
It keeps
guessing
them in
game or
suspense.
yes,
Totally.
yes.
So after that, I know you did an extension activity with your students. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. After we read the books, I had them each draw a picture about something that's special about them. Some of them drew different things that they like to do, like one of them drew a picture of them dancing. Others drew pictures of special things about who they are, like one of them drew a picture about them being a good friend. Yeah, so then at the end, they also had some time to draw some pictures about just different things that stood out to them from one of the stories. So they love drawing and love coloring, and it was fun to see how each of them expressed that. So that was cool.
Definitely. So what do you think your students got out of this activity or will take away from it?
After we read Fish is Fish, they did guess about that it was being free to be themselves. And by the end of both stories, I feel like they did understand the message. And I'm really looking forward to real life opportunities to bring the message back around.
Yeah, just talking about that, how do you think you're going to just reinforce this lesson throughout the year? And I noticed in your room there was a lot of celebration of the kids and who they are. So how do you think that you'll keep this message going?
To me, one of the most important things about teaching is just creating a safe space for the kids to be free to be themselves. I mean, I love this lesson because it really lines up with what I feel about the classroom and the kids. I guess just the space that I want to create for them is a space that they really feel that those unique and special things about them can really grow and thrive instead of be quenched. So I'll just reinforce this lesson by continuing to build that safe space for them, whether that's teaching kids that being farther in your math book isn't more important than somebody else, or when one of the kids is stuttering, to teach the kids to be sensitive and wait, because what the one is trying to say is super important. And then, I don't know, it just feels like there are opportunities every day to encourage them in their uniqueness and teach them to celebrate and encourage other kids' uniqueness too.
I love that. Why do you think that this is an important lesson or message for young kids?
I think it's so important for kids to learn at a young age how the differences are beautiful, their own differences, and then other kids' differences and other people's differences too. I just believe it can really teach them to have a confidence about who they are and to be able to use their talents to add to the world around them and and their weaknesses too. But through their weaknesses, they can learn to understand others.
That's such a good point. I know in anti-bias education, we talk a lot about the four domains of social justice teaching. And the first two are identity and diversity. So understanding who I am and the different parts of myself and celebrating those things without putting others down. And then diversity, meaning I can interact with other students and I appreciate the differences in other people. So I can definitely see how this activity and these two stories bring out both of those domains, which is great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we finish your interview today?
I just appreciate the time, really, and I love that Teaching Tolerance creates these resources for us to use just to teach kids about really important life lessons and heart lessons. So I loved it. I love that we got to do this.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks.
Keep up the good work.